Ariel Vera, an incredible content maker, documentary maker, architect lover, and mainly someone who just knows how to move through the world in a playful and curious way. He's a Peabody winner for some of his documentation on the hidden history of New York. Wait till you hear this story about Central Park. That one blew me away. That's what he does, y'all. He travels the world, mainly New York City, seeing these buildings that we interact with on a daily basis with a new eye. Your landscape around you is so much more than just a building or street. It's history, it's blood, it tells us about the world we live in, its ancestors, wisdom.
So that's why I love architecture. It just appears to be a building on the outside, but there's so much work that went into it from designers, architects, construction workers, electricians. And then there's a lot of artistry and history that goes into any given building that exists.
So we're going to get into all that. Enjoy, love, appreciate you. Peace. Let's just start at the top. Tell the lovely people who you are today, what you're interested in, what you're making, all of the things, anything.
Oh, of course. Oh, well, yeah, my name is Ariel Vera, and I run a show called Urbanist on social media, which covers the intersection between history and urbanism, how cities are built, how they tick, how they work, and the stories behind them. And then what my interest is in right now, it's a lot of things, but it's mostly like the behind the scenes of how cities are built is the main thing that I'm focusing at the moment.
Said you won a Peabody, correct?
I did, yeah. I went for interactive and immersive media, which is the first of its category this year, and along with
You're the inaugural winner.
yeah, along with like 4 other people, if I'm correct, and with my collaborator Carlo Green, we're officially the first Instagrammers / social media content creators to win the award.
And what did you win it for?
Interactive and immersive media, but basically the Peabodys in general is about excellence in storytelling.
Yeah, and was it just in general, or was there like a specific piece that was nominated, or?
Oh, great question. Yeah, it was a 5-part or 6-part series about the history of racism in New York City.
Wow.
Yeah, where we talked about specific spots in New York City, which is my shtick, where I talk about a specific place, and we talked about the history, about mostly African American history in those areas.
Can you give us some highlights, like what, like where isn't New York City a little racist at some point? But give me some highlights.
The biggest story, the one that went most crazy viral, is Seneca Village in Central Park. So Central Park we know as this gorgeous bucolic park, but there used to be a thriving middle class African American neighborhood in the 1800s where they owned their own land. So it was African American landowners, and that meant they also could vote in New York City law. So there was a massive plan to build a huge park, and right in the middle of that plan was this village, inconveniently for the powers that be. And they made a smear campaign saying there was a town filled with shacks and poverty running rampant, and it was better that we destroy it. So they claimed eminent domain, and the city took away that land for what is called fair market value within quotes, but it wasn't actually fair. So they were the land was basically ripped off from this middle class community, and
That's
Central Park was
Central
built.
Park.
Yeah.
Oh, Seneca Village. Oh, God, shout out to Seneca Village and the many versions of Seneca Villages that have been demolished and taken so that a stadium can be built or another parking lot. What do you love about? Okay, so I was just in DC, and there are moments where I'm like, being American is cool, but there are more moments where I'm like, this place is fucked up. And then you get to DC, and it's beautiful. Like,
Right.
it's aesthetically so. I mean, it's hard not to be like, these monuments are gorgeous. Look at this thing and these structures. So it made me say, wow, the power of architecture. You know how when you walk into a really beautiful home and you're like, this, I feel better.
Right.
Versus this cookie cutter stuff that gets built in like a day. So what did you love? Did you study architecture? What did you love about it that made you be like, I'm going to make short documentaries about architecture?
It's that experience that you talked about. I don't have a degree in architecture, but it's that experience of walking into a city and being in awe of the beauty of it. Not all cities created equally, but a place like Washington D.C. or downtown Manhattan or Paris, it just captured my imagination. And I've always been obsessed with cities since I was little. I used to be a huge fan of SimCity and Railroad Tycoon and Roller Coaster Tycoon. So I loved building ever since I was little. Um, and I study electrical engineering. My original intention was actually to potentially become an urban planner through civil engineering, but that didn't pan out. So I decided to study electrical engineering instead. And I never used that degree. So I basically just went into media very shortly thereafter graduating. And I decided, I don't need to nerd out about cities just to my friends. I can nerd out about cities to a bunch of people online.
And you have found community in this.
I have, yeah, because I started as a Tumblr blogger. I for
Damn, throwback.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've been a social media content creator for 15 years at this point. So in 2009, I started a Tumblr blog about music, and for 6 years, I wrote about music on a daily basis. And and it was nice because that was my first way of like finding my people. Because not everyone was into my taste of music, which was indie rock at that time here in New York City. So it was nice to find others online through it. And then the same thing happened with Urbanist. I found other people who just found history and architecture as fascinating as I did.
Fun fact about DC Paris, because you mentioned how beautiful they were. Same
Yeah.
architect. Did you know that?
Mhm.
Same
Yeah,
designer.
yeah. Similar urban planning.
Yep.
Paris was actually inspired by DC,
Wait, I didn't know that
which
one was DC was first.
DC is first. Yep, yep. DC is first, and then Paris was built.
God, do not tell that to
Per-
an American.
the
Please.
Parisians won't love that either. So
Yeah, please keep that under wraps. I do know the architect, Charles Infant or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
L'Enfant.
Lafont did both of them. Okay, so you're out here putting a lot of time and effort into into putting on blast beautiful things, or at least cool historic things. Uh, what keeps you coming back, or why not? Yeah. What's the evolution, or how do you still call yourself social media? Does it feel like that is changing on you, or yeah?
Yeah, I actually have come to the realization that most social media is stupid. To be very blunt. And I don't mean that to be mean, but mostly just because there's not much depth in a lot of social media, and it's just due to the volume of people making content nowadays, and not just people who just post because it's social media, but professionals, people who have become influencers and content creators. There's a deluge of content that all feels the very same. So what keeps me wanting to keep doing this and just keep sharing stories is that it's not the social media, it's not the platforms, it's not any specific um circumstance of business, but it's mostly just telling stories. It's about my fascination of what I'm enjoying at the moment. And that's why I always focus on what I love at the very moment on hand rather than trying to focus on what could be popular.
Well, yeah.
And that's
If we
that's how I
keep
keep myself sane.
making things for the algorithm, we're not actually unique in any sort of way. We become the algorithm, like we just become one giant blob called algorithm, and there is no individuality or uniqueness. And even when you think you're being unique, you're like stuck inside the cycle that says if you make it this way, you know, kiss or slap, right? If you just like you're just stuck in that like perpetual cycle. Um,
Right. Exactly. You're stuck in that perpetual cycle over and over again. And then it just creates all this content is the same. And this applies to every niche that there is. In my niche of history, and especially New York City history, there's just a lot of content that's the same. And it takes guts and it takes a lot of risk to just try something that's new or different or a bit quirky. Um, and not everyone does that because the algorithm rewards sameness. But in the long term, it's actually a better idea to try to turn things on its head, to be a little bit different, to be unique.
How are you finding, like maybe you can teach people, reveal your ways of moving through the world in a curious way. Like, how are you for 15 years walking through New York with an open perspective? And is it just Google? Like, do you just walk into a place and you're like, cool building, let me Google it? What is the process to being like, oh, there is a deeper, richer history here, which there is everywhere, but what's your sort of process to say, oh, this is next, I'm focusing on this or this?
Yeah, it's pretty much um so it's like my content. All my content is most of my content is filmed on site, on location. Like 97% of my content. It's very rare that I'm sitting down at home recording a video. So most of my stories, I get it through exploring or wandering around aimlessly. Is how I get most of my juiciest stories, or in the intellectually, just like listening to random podcasts or reading random books. That's how the stories come to me. So it's a combination of exploring in person out there in the city, and then the second thing is exploring topics that I am curious about at the moment. And
So you've been making things for 15 years in New York. How is New York
yeah.
still? Is there still stuff left to find, or have you found it all?
That's a good question. Very good question. I feel like I'm pushing the limit every single time of new topics to cover in New York City. It's tricky for sure. Um, and now that there's a lot of short form history content creators here in New York City, I feel like now the same stories are being repeated over and over again. So now I'm pushing myself to really go even more weird. So I made videos about the architectural details of the Met. Um, I'm contemplating and making a video about the history of rats in New York City. So
Whoa.
I'm really getting like out there. It's part of for me because I kind of want to keep myself entertained. If I'm entertained, then I'm entertaining my audience. That's how I always see it. But yeah, it's hard. It's not easy, but it takes an open mind and play. I think is the biggest thing, to not always focus on work, but to focus on I'm just gonna check this out. I'm gonna see if this alleyway has something cool, or this let me just go to this random event, see if I meet someone interesting. Things like that.
Al- Also, to not see the world, to see the world with new eyes and fresh eyes is really a, I mean, it's a cliche gift, but it's a gift. And cliches are only cliche because they're real, but there is a freshness to, like, you might take the same walk to work every day, but I can guarantee that there is life unexplored and history unexplored and ancestors and wisdom and violence and medicine and all this stuff on your simple walk to work, um, that made that walk even possible.
Right, right. I think the most beautiful stories are the ones that are under the mundane, what appears to be mundane. So that's why I love architecture. It just appears to be a building on the outside, but there's so much work that went into it from designers, architects, construction workers, electricians. And then there's a lot of artistry and history that goes into any given building that exists.
What would you say your top five? If people were to do like a
Yeah.
deep dive on you, what are your top five historic facts or videos you've made? Just like things you remember and you're like, oh, I killed it, or that was the most amazing thing to learn. What is it?
Yeah, yeah. One of them is a story that I think I was the first or one of the very first people to talk about it, and then now it's like dozens of content creators have made videos about it. It's the windowless skyscraper in New York City that's
Uh,
50 stories tall, and it has no windows aside from the lobby in the front. And it's tied with NSA activity, and It's a nuclear bunker as well. So this skyscraper is not just a telecommunications building; it's actually a fortified um, nuclear bunker in the middle of New York City, in essence.
33 Thomas Street.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know it. There we go. Yeah.
Google knows it. I looked it up.
Oh, nice.
33 Thomas Street. Okay, that's epic. Wait, so are you walking around and are you at 33 Thomas? You look at this building, you're like, yo, this is weird as hell, and then you're like, I gotta learn more.
Yeah, yeah, that literally is what happened to me because I started as a live streamer 8 years ago, and my live streams were just walking around the city. And then one time I was walking around the Tribeca area and I saw this building. I was like, what the hell is this? I had no idea because I never really noticed it as a New Yorker. And then I did some online researching and I realized the story, it was a rabbit hole. The story got deeper and deeper and deeper, more complicated. And then I did a live video just walking around it, talking about the history in depth. That was the first video I ever did on it.
All right, so
Yeah.
33 Thomas is number one. What's another one?
Um, in, in New York City, the second one would be 601 Lexington, which is the building that nearly collapsed because they built it on stilts. And it's a massive, massive structure in the middle of New York City. I forgot how many floors. I think it was like 60 to 70 floors around there. And they built it on stilts, but they did not put the stilts on the corners of the building. They put it in the middles of the building.
Yo, I'm
And
looking at this shit is crazy.
yeah, and that made the building not structurally stable
Sound.
enough to sustain a hurricane hitting the city. And there was a hurricane that was about to hit the city a few decades ago, and they panicked because they realized, oh shit, this could very well collapse if the hurricane hits a certain angle and the winds hit a certain angle. The building can not only collapse, it will topple, meaning that it will fall down towards another building and could very well potentially cause a domino effect in the city.
What'd they do?
They apparently fixed the building in secret, fixing the welding of the building to make sure the exoskeleton of the building was strong.
Well, we'll find out. Good luck
Yeah,
if you're in that building. Give us just one more.
I'll give you one more. Let me think of something international. Oh, this is a good one. Oh, I'm thinking about this. So in Poland, I went to a town that was off the map for many decades during the Cold War and only like kind of rediscovered or re-added to the map about like 20 years or so ago.
Wow.
And it's called Solonovo. Borneo Solonovo, hard to pronounce. But it was out of the maps because it was a secret Soviet base in essence. And
Wow.
the Soviets made an entire town. They had silos, both missile silos and potentially also nuclear silos right next door, which I visited one of the silos when making my video of it. And nowadays, it has been gentrified. So it
Like
has
coffee
become,
shops and galleries?
in essence, yes, and very beautiful homes inside
Amazing.
what used to be barracks and bunkers are now gorgeous middle class housing.
There is nothing we won't go after.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, it is that age old. You're like, well, if it was cheap, you know, someone's got to move there and start life, and it is the real. I think it's the different conversation between gentrification and displacement. You
yeah,
know, like people moving to a neighborhood they can afford uh is normal. I think if like it's what I can afford if I'm priced out of other places, but it's about when you know, like then you displace people because then they rise rapidly. Anyway, whole other
right.
conversation. Does that come up
See,
in your architecture thoughts, conversations? Like, yeah,
all the time. So
because
you
basically
would
every nice building is kicking someone out.
you would think that talking about buildings would not get that many negative comments, but the the most angriest of comments I've ever gotten are talking about housing and real estate. And those like it really like hits people on a deep emotional level. So the topic of gentrification comes up very, very often, even when I'm not talking about it directly, or um, when I don't think I'm talking about it. Like I'm talking about some landmark, and people are like, "Oh, this neighborhood has changed because there's now tourists coming to this landmark." Things like that. It happens over and over again.
Well, yeah, that's our homes are a part of us,
Right.
and I think we've been taught in a way to you look at a tall building, you're like top floor is the best floor, or I don't know, you see beautiful films and movies, and um just the story of that, and then you also happen to live in a country, and I know New York, especially also in Los Angeles, just the unhoused population is wild. And then I don't know if you talk about this, but we have enough housing for people. We just don't have policy to put them in safe spaces, but it's there. There's so much just what is that fact about those like skyscrapers in New York City? They're basically fucking uninhabited because no one can afford them.
Yes. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And that taught me, like, talking about those topics and realizing how people are so have very strong thoughts about it. It made me realize that architecture and our built environment is important. So these stories really do go a long way in um, bettering people's lives just by adding more context to what they're looking at and more understanding of how a city works and how any built environment works in essence. So sometimes we forget that things are complicated in the city. So these mega skyscrapers are definitely, yes, they are empty. So they caused a lot of issues with just overindulgence of building too high and almost no one's living there. Um, but at the same time, it's complicated because they do bring a lot of taxes, and then they also incentivize construction. So it's always good to, in my opinion, to always build is a good thing to as opposed to not building. But yeah, it's a
Wait,
complicated topic.
wait. So building in general, like new buildings are better to you than leaving things as they are. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm a fan of building. I think we should continue building in places all around the world. So that's why a lot of people struggle with, I think, the ideas of housing and gentrification, is because there's just not enough options of where one could move to. Uh, it's very limited, and hence the prices are very high, and hence mobility in any given city is very difficult.
And then, the contracts, like you'd mentioned, to give those contracts to certain people, and someone's getting rich off, off of like taking 3-4 years to build something.
Indeed, yeah, yeah, precisely.
Do you know about, so Tibet is, have you done any videos in Tibet?
No, no, not yet. I haven't been to Asia yet, but I would love to go to Tibet specifically, actually.
Tibet is designed as a temple. Like all of Tibet is designed as like imagine it as a singular temple. And I think this is really profound to think about your environment as what it's representing. Uh, to go back to what we said about sort of DC or Paris, or like the power of trees. There's this great book, Power versus Force. You might enjoy it. And he
Dr.
talks.
David Hawkins?
Yeah, so you read
Oh,
it?
wow. Yeah, man. I was just listening to a lecture of Dr. David Hawkins right now,
So
just before this
amazing.
podcast.
But yeah, that's wow, epic. Okay. So he talks about in the book like trees actually increase our physical strength. Like being in nature is good for us. When you put someone like next to a real table made of wood versus some IKEA like table, made of like 10% wood ingredients, your physical strength is better, right? He's doing muscle testing to people listening. He's like, he's
Right.
testing you in front of a real Picasso, and then he's testing you in front of a reproduction. And your muscle strength is somehow, this is like percentages, but stronger in front of the real one. And he goes to talk about urban landscapes, and how in so many impoverished neighborhoods we've taken their trees away from them. We've taken nature away from them. And so I think about our environments and where we live, and it's why I kind of want to just move to the trees. Like I think I'm over the city. Like I just want to see a reminder of a world that has lived way longer than me, nature, and has gotten it right for way longer than us people have.
Yeah, yeah, and I know what you mean is definitely nature is hard to replace, and we should not try replacing it. Um, at the same time, us humans are nature, and our cities are nature, because just as us humans look at a ant mound, we don't think to ourselves, "Oh, that's an artificial structure." We just think that's a part of the natural landscape. It's just a bunch of ants built it, or a beaver dam,
Mm.
or a bunch of mushrooms spreading across a tree. So, to a higher perspective, or to another perspective, if aliens were to come, they would look at our buildings, and to them, it would just look a part of the natural landscape,
Mm.
because our built environment does emulate the natural landscape. Skyscrapers are like a canopy of trees, and airplanes are like the bees pollinating from one flower to another. Instead, planes are bringing people from one place to another. But the thing
This
is,
is a
and
good
we,
it's like a that is
yeah,
such a good monologue in some sort of movie, where you play like this
it's in my
futurist
documentary series.
developer. It's so good.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's my own words, but it's not spontaneously said. It's from my
No.
documentary, Athens Urbanist, which I talk about gentrification actually. But yeah, yeah, and it's that we've kind of lost that connection with nature, because we think that we have to rid ourselves of nature in order to be proper humans. In a way, I think that's how society has interpreted innovation. But no, nature has to be with us. And I think the fact that we sprawl too much, we build suburbs that sprawl, we build a lot of single family homes. There's low density construction all around the US and many parts of the world, that we're farther and farther away from nature. But
Mm.
that's why I'm such a huge fan of building a city, and the building a city well, because if you build a very dense city and have trees, of course, in it, but if it's dense, that means you'll be closer to nature. In Hong Kong, you can take a subway and get to the mountains. In Netherlands, I took a 20-minute bus ride from Amsterdam, and I saw cows grazing on fields and windmills. So
So density over spreading out the idea of like urban centers of commerce or business, like put it all really in one spot, um,
right.
so that you can keep the surrounding areas as close to the source.
Exactly. And that makes both our life in cities more pleasant, because there's more social activity. We can hang out with more people. We have more things to do. There's more arts and more innovation and more entrepreneurship, because people are hanging out together. And then beyond that, we have nature. We give more space for nature. And I think that is the main challenge we're encountering as humans nowadays, is thinking that nature is a bit icky and we have to go away from it. But actually, we have to. I'm going to use a term that's very stereotypical, but we got to hold space for nature.
Oh, holding space. But also, yes, we do need to hold space for a lot of things. What's after New York? You gonna go Puerto Rico it? Or is it just keep seeing the world with fresh eyes? Is there big plans for you? Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been to Puerto Rico. I've covered Puerto Rico already 3 times, 3 different instances. And I just went this past summer. And but it's nice to cover my homeland, because there's a lot of different aspects of Puerto Rico that people usually don't talk about, and people don't always know the full history of, like, mofongo, which is the our classic dish, or like the pina colada. or
Is
sunflowers.
mofongo the national dish? Is there a
Well, not
national dish?
I'm attributing it as a national dish. I don't think it's the official national dish, but basically mofongo is as Puerto Rican as you can get.
Arroz con gandules
There we
is
go.
the
That's
national dish. For y'all listening, rice and peas.
rice and peas. Yeah, exactly. But yeah. What's next for me is I don't know. I've always wanted to be a filmmaker, a director. I wanted to make fictional movies, sci-fi, musicals, romance. So I want to make movies, and that is the next big leap of faith for me. That I don't know. It's unknown to me because I'm not in the movie industry, so I have no idea where to go and how to do it. But I know I can write. I know I can tell a story. I know how to film and edit. So we'll see how it goes. But that's my next big thing.
Do you know solar punk?
Solar punk, yeah.
Like the theme of
So cyberpunk.
like solar punk. It's like a movement where environment and sustainable future meets technology. Like
Yeah,
so some of what we're speaking about, right? Like I think your project is one where it is this incredibly advanced. We have so much wonderful technology, but instead of taking from the earth, we work in collaboration with it. You know, um, yeah.
that is, and there's not that many movies that are take place in the solar punk world. But
Get
yeah,
in
that
there.
is a very beautiful. Actually, that is a very good idea. I
Get in
wrote
there.
I wrote a short novel that's self-published on Amazon. That's quantum punk, and quantum punk is way scarier because it's building computers that know way more than we would ever know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we're far from that one.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, I like this. I think I talk about donut economics a lot, which is this great theory on economics. If you're ever going to read one economics book,
Mhm.
donut economics, and it's the idea that, we don't think circularly in general. We think arrow, and stock markets always have to go up. Like everything is straightforward, forward, up, growth at all costs. Skyscraper buildings get bigger, but what is circular architecture? What is circular economy? What is something that regenerates? Uh, or as a great friend of mine, Yara, says, she calls it the penis problem. Like we've designed too much of the world like a penis, and also a penis is pleasure. Like it's just like a peak and then it's done. Climax and then we're finished. Versus like what she calls sort of the vagina solution is circular. It gets better the longer you go.
I like that. Yeah, and that is actually very very astute. We live in a very masculine driven world at the moment, and I think now we're starting to transition, and in society we're getting more in touch with our femininity. Um, but
Maybe.
but yeah, that's a very good concept. I like that. It's even in the book Power versus Force with Dr. David Hawkins. Life
Is
is
it? What
non
does he say?
life is non-linear, so we can't yes, us as humans, we tend to look things as A to B to C to D, but that is not really how life works. Life works from D to B to E to Z, etc. It goes in ways that we don't fully comprehend.
Life is not linear, and the penis is the problem. On that note, um, do you have any questions for me? Any last thoughts, or how can people engage with you? All the things.
Oh, well, one question for you is, what's your favorite city in the world?
Well, this isn't. It depends. I'm like it depends on my mood. I'm not gonna lie. I am deeply in love with Paris. I am a good version of myself out there. I'm a good version. I do a lot of great coffee drinking and just writing and reading and going on like 10, 12-mile walks every day. So that version of me is fantastic. But I also feel like I've had, in New York, you can have certain days that you just can't have anywhere, where you can go out in the morning and not come home till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and just be chilling.
Right.
Um, and just like always in movement, right? Like because you are walking or the train. And yeah, so I put New York and Paris up there. Aesthetically, I go hard with some Eastern Europe, like
Oh yeah, yeah.
um
Where?
aesthetically. Like I love Budapest. Like
Oh, cool.
I just love some of the architecture out there. uh Also, Berkeley, like Northern
Me
California
too.
has some stunning architecture. And I like the design of there, minus the traffic. Um, but
Oh,
lately,
nice.
lately I'm just leaning towards nature, like
Of course.
Big Stir, less houses, more trees.
Oh, that's good to hear.
And that has served me. So those are my favorite at this moment in time. And if you had to
Right.
pick a fave,
I do love New York, but yeah, one of my favorites is Paris. Paris, I think, is the perfect city. It has a lot of issues, of course, so like any other city, but it's just the cafes, the culture, the food. There's every single type of food ever imaginable. Great public transportation. Lots of people. It's as diverse as New York or London. Um, and Paris is just a vibe.
yeah,
It's a vibe. And I think that's why I love it so much.
two New Yorkers
Yeah.
really talking up Paris. Um, we gotta do this next episode out there. Where can people watch your stuff, engage, chat with you?
Well, actually, before I answer that question, I'll give one book recommendation, if I may,
Yeah, of
because
course.
just to
Give all the
follow up
recs.
on what you said. You mentioned Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. Definitely read that, but uh, definitely read also his other book called Letting Go,
I
and
have not, and many people have told me to.
that book is truly a deep, deep, deep life changer. It will completely transform anyone's life, in my
We
opinion. It's one
ordering
of the
it
best.
right now.
Oh, nice. One of the best spiritual texts ever written, in my opinion.
Damn.
Um, and it's not pure woo woo because he was one of the psychiatrists with one of the biggest practices in a few decades ago. So he knows his shit.
Yeah, no, he's
But
he's good people.
where can people find me? They can find me on all the channels. I'm basically almost every platform, but the biggest ones is Instagram, Urbanist Live, and on YouTube, it's Urbanist Exploring Cities. And there, people can watch my full feature length documentaries, such as the topics we talked about today.
Yo, they're really, really dope. You don't just get a Peabody for nothing. So check them out. I anticipate more Peabodys and other awards in your near future.
I
And
appreciate
I
that.
am very, very grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Peace. All right, y'all. Thank you for hanging with us today. And again, if you want to hear something specific, if you want to let us know what you're loving, send us a voice memo or an email to brownenoughproductions@gmail.com. Again, that's brownenoughproductions@gmail.com. And I will see you next week. Peace and blessings.